Did anyone else's procrastination hit them like a freight train this month? No? Just me? Cool. Welcome back if you're new. My name is Kristen, and you've reached my little corner of the internet. No. We're not doing that. I mean, I just did it. It was kind of funny. No? Okay. Today I'm coming at you with the most revolutionary idea ever seen on the planet, and it is my April reading wrap up. Woo! My procrastination with my April reads just hit me like a freaking freight train this month. I don't even know where the month went. I'm going to blame it on it being 30 days instead of 31 because I thought there were 31 days in April, but there, in fact, is not 31 days in April. But you know what? That's okay. I wanted to read 8 books this month. I didn't. I read 6 books this month, and I actually have my stats written out this time. So, like I said, I wanted to read 8 books. I read 6. That's okay. That's fine. 6 is a normal amount. Nothing to beat yourself up over. That's fine. We strive for better next month. But I read 6 books this month. 5 were romance. There was 1 fantasy, and within those 6 books, one of those was also a reread. Very interesting. It was quite a journey, but I ended up reading 2,937 pages, and there were 2 books that I picked for my April TBR at the beginning of the month that I did not end up reading, which were Deep End and Rebel Witch. Did not get to those, but the rest I did get to and added one outside of that TBR. So not too bad, not too bad. And my average rating this month was a 3.8. That's a little saucy. That's, don't get too crazy now. But yeah, there was a book or 2 in here that may have caused the ratings to drop. I'm looking at you, Mile High. Anyway, that's enough lollygagging. Let's get into the books that I read in April. Also, I always preface with this, I do have my Burke journal. That's what that is, yep. I do have my book journal with me. This is the one that I got from my Probably Smut book subscription box. My goodness, the words just don't come out correctly there, huh? It's from my Probably Smut book subscription box, and they send over like templates every month with their box. So this is how I keep track pretty much of all the books that I read, and I'm able to write little handwritten reviews and all that, so I will be referencing this to remember exactly what I read, because who remembers everything that they read? If you do, you're lying. Okay, now enough lollygagging. Let's get into the books. The first book I read in April. No, I did not DNF it. Shocker, I know. I've actually never DNF'd a book, fun fact. Yeah, first book I read in April. Did I say March? I don't know. Anyway, the first book I read in April was Mile High by Liz Tomford. Tomford? I don't know. I gave this a 3.5. I feel like that's like a solid rating for this. Between like a 3 and a 3.5, I feel like is fair, and I will get into it. So this is the first book in the Windy City series, and they are all different sports romances. So this one is a hockey romance, and it follows Xander's and Stevie. Xander's is on the Chicago hockey team, and Stevie is the flight attendant for that hockey team's private plane when they go to away games. So that is how they meet. And Xander's is an F-boy, pretty much. He is a glorified F-boy, and somehow tries to prove himself by trying to show that he may have a soft spot, but it doesn't really work, but somehow Stevie folds in some way. I know the other books in the series get a lot more praise, and I don't know if it's because the writing gets better, and I know the characters get better for sure. I know a lot of people just had an issue with Xander's in this book, and I feel like with his character and mixed kind of with the writing, it was giving Wattpad, and like in not a good way. Also, the fact that this book was almost 500 pages, it didn't need to be. It literally didn't need to be. I talked about this in one of my vlogs that I posted this month at the 300 page mark, and I was like, what is there left to say? It was getting repetitive. The story was just, it felt like dragged on and a little bit too like montage-y, and it just didn't need to be 500 pages long. I didn't learn anything new or of relevance in the last 200 pages. It could have been concised. Those last 200 pages could have been concised into a 300 page book if you took out parts that started getting repetitive in the middle of the book. So this wasn't as horrible of a read as everyone like kind of made it out to be. I mean, at some points I wanted to throw this book, but I made it through, and I feel like through reading this I was able to learn more about some of the other characters that are going to show up later on in other books. So I am grateful that I did push through and made it to the end of this, but at what cost? At what cost? So my one fantasy read for the month was The Songbird and the Heart of Stone by Carissa Broadbent. This is the third book in the entire Crown of Nyaxia series, but the first book in this duet, which is the Shadowborn duet. The first two books are the Nightborn, I believe. Yeah, I was right. The first two books are the Nightborn duet, which follow one couple, and these next two books will follow a different couple from the Shadow Court in this world that we're in. So this follows Misha, and she is Rain's best friend from the first two books. So I was very excited to get her book and her point of view from Carissa. So I gave this a 4.25 out of 5. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I was going through some of the Goodreads reviews and people were like in pain reading this book, and I don't understand why. I could see that there are some points where it got a little bit repetitive, and they were kind of doing the same thing every day. But I loved Misha and Asar, I think is how you say his name. I loved their chemistry. Misha is sunshine and Asar is like the epitome of grumpy. So like the grumpy sunshine, the chemistry was so there. So basically Misha and Asar are on this journey to the underworld, and they go through these like trials, attack different kinds of beasts and what have you. I really can't say too much because I don't know how much of it is spoiling it from the first two books. So if you haven't read the first two books, definitely do. If you love a grumpy sunshine, definitely pick this one up. I did knock it a few points because one, there's no male POV, and in The Serpent of the Wings and Night, I believe we do get Rain's point of view, and we don't get Asar's point of view in this book, and lame. I like love reading, especially like a grumpy male POV. Like just seeing how a guy talks about a girl when he's the grumpy one is just so like, I just think of Cade every single time. Anyway, again, the middle of the book did get a little bit repetitive, but I feel like the chemistry between the two characters really kept it going. And there's a dog, so loved this for my fantasy read this month, and it definitely ended on not a cliffhanger, but definitely on a note where I want the next book. So I don't even know if there is a date for the next book, but I am so there when it gets released. Okay, the third book I read in April was somehow also didn't DNF this book, but was just the most abysmal piece of literature I probably have ever read. But I still only gave it 2 stars. Well, I guess I should show you. This is Love Story by Lindsay Kelk. I've never read anything by this author and probably never will again. Originally, I finished this book and I was like, okay, I can do a 2.75. I'm fine with that. And then last night I was filling out my book journal with my handwritten reviews, and after sitting on it after like 2 weeks after finishing the book, I was like, no, this is a 2-star read, 100%. And I have never given a book a solid 2 stars before. This is a first for me. I've given a 2.75, but I don't think I've given anything lower than that. And well, there's a first for everything. So this follows Sophie and Joe. Sophie is, her front persona is a school teacher. On the side, she is the hot romance writer SD Cox. She's writing under a pen name and nobody knows who she is. And Joe is the creative director, so he's the one who actually makes the covers, and he made the cover for her book, but doesn't know that it's her. So Sophie has to go to the countryside for her dad's birthday, and Joe, of course, shows up, and they end up sharing a little cottage together with one bed. I don't know what it is about just writing tropes in the summary of a book. I should have seen that as a red flag. It's just not something I love, and it shows because I hated the book. Anyway, I wrote down a lot of like note-taking bullet point notes while I was reading the book. I think I should just read those to you because I feel like they make more sense and I can kind of elaborate on why I didn't like this book so much. First off, it's a rom-com. It was funny. I will say I did laugh. There were some good jokes in there, won't lie. It was also labeled as an enemies to lovers. Enemies where? Enemies where? Enemies where? I don't know where it is because the enemies maybe lasted for 10 pages. There was no chemistry development at all between the two characters. I have no idea how they fell for one another. It was almost insta-lovey, and I did not enjoy that at all. Say, like, two sworn enemies? No. I hate the labeling of enemies when only one person doesn't like the other person, and it's obvious that the other person really likes the other person. Enemies means rage. It means hate. It means tension and angst and then some yearning and like chemistry buildup, and there was none of that in this book. I have no idea. It was just not there, and that made it really hard to care about these characters while reading about them, especially the FMC. Oh my gosh. Her inner monologues were so boring. I'm sorry. The writing was just, I feel like Lindsay was trying to be overly descriptive to make it sound like she was writing something interesting and lyrical when really I was just reading. I felt like a bunch of gibberish. It was making it hard to picture where I was reading with how much she was describing things, if that makes sense. It was too much. Like where I was skimming and getting lost. Daisy Buchanan on the back here wrote a blurb saying that Lindsay Kelk is the Taylor Swift of romance writing. No, she's definitely not the Taylor Swift of romance writing. I guess my gripe with romance books being pushed out so much, especially with TikTok, is now trying to make a book seem cool because there are pop cultural references in the book. No, in fact, it turns me off so much. The constant mention of TikTok, real life authors, like I think like Emily Henry and Abby Jimenez were mentioned in this book. Popular book tropes takes me out of the story and pretty much for me defeats the whole purpose of reading in the first place, because I'm not sitting here and reading this trying to be reminded of what's going on in real life. I feel like this book really solidifies my feelings in authors making their main characters authors, especially popular romance writers. Like, yeah, I can understand why it's kind of a cool premise to read about a main character trying to write their book and like designing their cover and working with publishing and editors and deadlines and whatnot. It's just the pop culture references, I think, in this book that really did it for me, and the overly long descriptions. And by halfway, I was already skipping pretty much a lot of the descriptive paragraphs and the inner monologues. Also, this whole book takes place over 48 hours. How do you do enemies to lovers in 48 hours? 48! What do you mean? Like, 2 days. No, that's not enemies to lovers. That is insta-love. That is insta-love, okay? And the main character's brother, the best part of the whole book. He's the one who wrote the comedy. That's all the jokes that I mentioned earlier, they all came from him. Just to say, no, I don't recommend this. In fact, probably stay as far away from it as possible. So, if you liked it, sorry, but I didn't, so if it wasn't obvious. The next book I read in April was Funny Story by Emily Henry. I gave this a 4.25. I dedicated a whole reading vlog to reading Emily Henry books this month. So a little backstory on that if you haven't seen that vlog. When I started my reading journey as an adult a couple years ago, I read Beach Read for the first time and did not like it at all, which is totally okay. And then I read Happy Place in 2023 when it came out and also didn't really enjoy it. I couldn't even tell you the plot of that book right now, but I guess I will say I do plan a reread of that in the future. I don't know when, but you'll see why. And I decided to pick up Funny Story just to give Emily Henry one last chance because I felt like I had a little bit of FOMO. I won't lie. I had a little bit of FOMO. Everyone was raving about her books, her characters, this whole like universe that she has going on. And I'm like, what do you mean this whole universe that's going on? I want to know. So I decided to pick up Funny Story this month and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I gave it a 4.25. So if you don't know, this follows Miles and Daphne, and essentially their exes break up with both of them and go to be with each other, which leaves Miles without a roommate. So Daphne moves in with Miles. It is a very interesting, unconventional premise, but I ate it up. The friends to lovers was done really, really well in here. I feel like sometimes authors try to make it too obvious that the main character likes the love interest in the book way too soon by like dropping like weird hints about, you know, their crush or whatever. I feel like Emily did a great job allowing us to kind of grow and develop feelings with Daphne, if that makes sense. The banter between Daphne and Miles was just perfect. They're hilarious together, and I think that's why the friends to lovers worked so well in this book. And I noticed this because the next book I read was Beach Read, but I'll just say that right now. I noticed this with Funny Story and Beach Read, so I wonder if this is just a thing that Emily does in her writing. But the way she interweaves flashbacks into her books is so well done. It's pretty much seamless on how she does it, and it's kind of mind-blowing a little bit. It like makes sense to have a flashback in the spot that she puts it, if that makes sense. The way she does flashbacks also, it's really helpful because it allows for character development in a very interesting way, and it doesn't feel like, you know, that she's talking at the reader. It feels personable, and it like makes sense to be going in to the past with the main character. And I feel like sometimes with flashbacks too, it can kind of get a little bit repetitive, like they're hammering down this one point, like I'm like this because of this and this and this. That's why I'm this way. That's why I'm this way. And it's just the same point over and over and over again. And I feel like Emily does a great job kind of expanding on the character through multiple different flashback lenses and not just one single point or scene or memory to make the character the way they are, if that makes sense. And I really enjoyed the plot. It moved really quickly. And again, their chemistry was out of this world. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I truly feel like I'm in their friend group. While I was reading it, I was like, oh my gosh, I miss them. Why do I miss them? I didn't know what was happening to me while I was reading this. I was like, am I changing now that I'm liking an Emily Henry book? I feel like a new person, a new reader. I did knock it a few points because I don't know if she does this in any of her other books, but there's no male point of view. Nope. There's no male point of view, POV. There's no male POV in Beach Read either. So I would love to see her write from a male point of view. I feel like that would be interesting. Again, I don't know if she does in her other books, but I feel like it would be interesting to read to see how she would write a male point of view, because we love men written by women. So, and who other than to write a man is, you know, it should be Emily Henry, I feel like. All right, like I said, the next book I read was Beach Read. So I did read this in 2022, and I don't have my original copy anymore because I didn't like it, so I gave it away. And while I was filming my reading vlog for Funny Story, I decided, why not? Let's just read Beach Read, give it another shot. I enjoy it. When I finished Funny Story, I was like, I enjoyed it. I can see myself rereading Beach Read. Ended up being the next book that I picked up. So I did give this a 4.5 stars. I think I originally gave it a 3, and she's a 4.5. She went up a whole 1.5. That is crazy. Also, if you don't know what Beach Read is about, you probably should, if you haven't read it yet, but it follows January and Gus, and they are both authors, and they're both neighbors, and they are actually kind of enemies-ish, rivals-ish. They know each other from college, and several years now in the future they are neighbors, and they are both suffering from kind of like a writer's block and decide to swap genres because January is a romance author and Gus is more of a literary fiction writer. So they decide to swap genres and take each other on these like kind of research dates to learn more about each other's genres. So I could kind of see why I did not enjoy this book when I first read it. It wasn't very inner monologue-y, but it was just inner monologue-y enough to where it wasn't boring and it was actually pertinent to the story. I could see why my peanut-sized brain in 2022 didn't like it because I definitely was probably skimming some of these paragraphs for sure. But now rereading it, I'm like, why would I do that? The writing in here was so captivating. It kept me not on the edge of my seat, but it kept me interested in the plot. I also love the quick-witted banter in here. Their like back and forth is really funny. Like so January and Gus have this like really funny quick-witted banter. They're at a carnival and Gus goes, I just counted the rides, 7. January, I'm really proud of you for getting that high. Maybe next time see if you can aim for 10. I love that kind of banter. It's just so funny. And I said this about Love Story, about my qualms with books about where the main characters are authors, and it comes from my disdain with too many pop culture references throughout the book. I feel like Emily makes authors a main character in a way that it's actually interesting and not boring and not cringy, where they're mentioning book talk every other page, and it's actually a job that is relevant to the story, and they're not authors just because it's like popular to be a romance author right now or something like that. Not everyone is looking for an emotional, hard-hitting, gut-wrenching read every single time they pick up a book. Sometimes you just want a light, fluffy romance, and that's fine. I love those too. But every once in a while when I pick up a book like this that has such realistic themes of grief, learning how to put yourself first, trying and allowing yourself to be vulnerable enough to accept love from somebody else. Love a book like that, I think. So Beach Read, funny story, Emily Henry overall definitely made her redemption back into my reading life for sure. I do have her new book coming in the mail soon, so and I heard that one reads a little bit more literary and not as romance heavy, which is fine. I'm actually very excited to see, and hopefully she does a male POV in that book. Please, I'm begging. If anything, I would take a whole book just of Gus's POV. I would read it. I'd read it for sure. And the last book I read in April, Redeeming Six by Chloe Walsh, the 4th book in the Boys of Tommen series. I just finished this literally yesterday too, April 30th. Right on the dot. Could not have cut it any closer, but I mean, come on, this book is almost 800 pages. I did end up giving this book a 4.5 out of 5. I loved Saving Six so much. I literally thought I was not going to enjoy Joey and Aoife's story, but boy, oh boy, was I wrong. I almost think that I like them better than Shannon and Johnny. Is that a hot take? I don't know. So like I said, this book's a chunker. It's almost 800 pages, but boy, oh boy, it flew. It did not feel like I read 800 pages. It felt like I read like maybe 400. Also, the short chapters are much appreciated. So again, if you don't know, Boys of Tommen, it takes place in Ireland. It follows rugby players at Tommen College, which is a private prep school. And the first 2 books are Binding and Keeping 13, which follow Shannon Lynch and Johnny Kavanagh. Johnny is a rugby player, and Shannon just transferred to Tommen, and her older brother Joey. The next 2 books are about him and Aoife. If you like the song I Can Fix Him, No Really I Can by Taylor Swift, that is the epitome of Joey and Aoife. 100%. That is literally them in a song. Also, if you like books that take place in the early 2000s, I'm talking early 2000s, like 2000 to like 2005, 2006. The vibes are so there with it. It's so evident that it takes place in the early 2000s with like the phones and the texting and the minutes and the like everything. It's just so interesting to read about. I think kind of what missed the mark on this book for me, I did not realize how much of the events from Binding and Keeping 13 would show up in this book, because pretty much all of Saving Six happens before Shannon transfers to Tommen, and now in Redeeming Six, a lot of the events are taking place simultaneously with Binding and Keeping 13, which I saw that there's like a tandem guide. So if I want to reread this in the future, I definitely don't recommend tandem reading this. If it's your first time, definitely read them in order. I probably will go back and do like a tandem read. I feel like that would be really fun. It did take me like a couple chapters to start enjoying not rereading the events of Binding and Keeping 13, but like kind of reliving them, but from a different perspective. I was like, do I really have to like read all of this again? But I started appreciating the different perspectives a little bit more. Every time I was reading in Joey's POV, I was like, my heart was hurting. I can't, the amount of stuff. He's just a kid. He is just a kid. He is 17, 18 years old and like going through all of this crap in his life, and I just cannot fathom. Of course that was his mental state. It's just like, it's so heartbreaking to read about, and I loved it. I guess focusing on Aoife a little bit, who is the FMC in this book, I still love her. She is just a ray of sunshine, but she's also so blunt, and I think that's what makes her so perfect, with her quick-witted comments and how straightforward she is, but also how much of a ray of sunshine she is. It makes for the perfect kind of protectiveness of Joey and the rest of the Lynch kids. Just seeing her kind of step up into that mother figure that Joey needed, taking care of the Lynch kids pretty much all by himself. I feel like this could have been a 5-star read if there were less of the events of Binding and Keeping 13 and more of the events after those 2 books. I like the 6 books a little bit more because of the deeper emotional bond that Joey and Aoife have together. I mean, because like they've known each other since they were 12 years old. Like obviously that connection is going to be there. Just reading on how they got together and how they stay together is just, it's a journey and a half, I'll say that. And I do have Taming 7 on my May TBR, so I am so excited to continue that series. Taming 7 follows Gibbsy, which is Johnny's best friend, so I am so excited to dive into that book next. That was a lot of talking. Hopefully you enjoyed all my reviews on the 6 books that I read this month. I do want to read more next month. I have some like interesting kind of videos planned. I do have like, I guess a little teaser into what's coming in May, but I do have the lowest rated Goodreads book from my physical TBR on my May TBR. So there could be a reading vlog of that coming soon. I might disagree with that. Maybe I will agree with that. I don't know. But yeah, that is all I have for you today. Make sure to give this video a like if you enjoyed. If you didn't, give it a like anyway, because that's the nice thing to do. Make sure to leave a comment down below on your favorite book that you read in April. I would love to know, and subscribe if you haven't already. This is my little corner of the internet, and I'm the internet. And be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. This is my little corner of the internet. Hello, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. And I would love to see you in future videos. And I hope you come back. That would be nice. All the links to my socials will be down below. Just click in the box. It's one more extra click. Not that hard. And yeah, that's all from me. And I hope to see you guys in my next video. All right. Bye.